Hello everyone, today we're going to be painting a nice farm setting like so. You are going to need watercolor paper, watercolors, a black ink pen, and watercolor brushes. Let's begin. If you are new to my channel, thank you for stopping by. If you're a returning subscriber, thank you so much. You pretty much get the gist if you have seen my other tutorials, but you start off by outlining your setting first. I was not using a reference. I just drew a barn kind of from memory. So feel free to copy mine or make up your own. But that's the first step in a pen and wash setting, is outlining everything in pen. Your pen strokes don't have to be super refined or anything like that. They can kind of be fun and sloppy. And that's what is kind of the main draw to pen and wash. I've had a lot of you request that I do both sets of tutorials. One that is slower and more drawn out, kind of like a step-by-step, and then some of these quicker ones. So I thank you for letting me know, because that helps me out a ton, and I'll try to mix up and do one per week of each, at least. So if you're struggling following along with this tutorial, just slow down the video and your playback speed, and that could help you. But just keep in mind that I will be posting longer videos throughout the coming weeks as well, so you can kind of get an idea for how my style works. But I also want you guys to explore with your own style, and as you get to be more comfortable, branch out and start experimenting on your own. These tutorials are meant to be as a basis and to kind of help you and guide you along as you begin to refine your craft. Now it is about time to start adding the wash. And so the wash portion of pen and wash is meant to be stylized and light. It's not meant to pull away from the pen. It's kind of meant to accompany the pen and be a little bit more comic book cartoony while still keeping a sense of realism. It's a delicate balance, but it's also a very fun and easy technique. So for the sky, I'm wetting down my paper first. I'm trying not to add in any puddles of water or anything like that, and then taking a fairly generous amount of water and paint on my brush and applying it over the wet areas without trying to let it bleed too much into the dry areas. So I am being specific with where I lay the water, because the paint will go wherever the water goes, so keep that in mind. For the clouds, I do this every tutorial. Take a dried paper towel and blotch out some cloud shapes. I wasn't quite happy with the intensity of my sky, so I came back while it was still wet and came over with a little bit more intense blue, and then I did that blotching technique with a paper towel. Now that we have our sky laid down, it's time to start putting in our other colors. I'm using a cheaper paper this time, the Strathmore colorable greeting cards. I just had them laying around and I was like, I wondered how they would be. I didn't want to use expensive paper for this. So I cut one of those up, and so far it works pretty well. I still like the Arches paper the most. This one kind of pushes the paint around instead of absorbing it, which I found kind of annoying. So keep in mind that your paper does matter quite a bit. So once you begin to feel more comfortable with watercolors, step up your paper to 100% cotton paper and it will change your life. But this worked for now, and it's more consistent with what a lot of you guys will be working with. But as we're letting that sky dry, we're beginning to work in our other colors on our other portions of the painting. Keep in mind that if you don't let your sky dry completely and you put color next to that wet spot, the color will bleed into that wet spot, which can be a desirable effect, but if not, it can be really annoying. So make sure you take a blow dryer or something and blow dry those first layers. For the shadow of the barn, I am using a little bit of blue while the red is still wet as well, and pulling that in. And that can add a nice atmospheric shadow. Using pitch black can kind of make your shadows look a little muddy and weird. So blue is a better way to go. And I'm also pulling that into the grass as well. And that can give a nice shadow to your piece. As I'm working, I'm trying to keep in mind where I picture the sun coming from. So the front face of that barn is where I wanted the sun to be hitting. So it has to be consistent throughout your piece. So even on the trees, I'm adding a little shadow in. Where I put the shadow in the grass really depends on where I imagine the light source coming from. So for this piece, the light source is coming from the top right side. And so that's why I put shadows where the roof would be. It's casting a shadow onto the front face of the barn and on the back face as well. And that'll be consistent through my piece. And if you nail the lighting, your piece will feel cohesive and more alive. So really be aware as to where you want your light source to be coming from at all times. And if you keep that in mind, it'll make your pieces look that much better. I also opted for a little bit of rustic feel on the barn roof by adding in a little bit of brown that can make it look like cool little rusty spots. As my existing layers dry, I'm coming back over them with more intense versions of the color I laid down, and that's building up tonal quality, and it will help your painting to feel less washed out. So if you're finding your paintings to be washed and not as contrasty, it's probably because you haven't added enough layers. So coming back over the dried layers and adding in more color and darker tones can really bring out the contrast in your piece. And so a lot of pieces will suffer from lack of contrast. And if you are feeling like your piece is, maybe mess around with the contrast a little bit more. I also come back over with more pen. My pen can get kind of washed out as I add paint over it. So refining those lines again can help make my pieces pop. Keep repeating that tone process of building up tones. I usually do it until I'm happy and I feel really good about the piece. And that's basically what I'm doing to finish out this piece. If you watch any of my other tutorials, that's how I usually end all my pieces, is by saying just build up that tone quality, and that's going to help it feel more alive. So mess around with that. Don't be scared to add more tones in. It's okay to make your colors intense. They will always dry a little bit lighter than you expect. And that is actually going to wrap it up for this piece. Thank you guys for watching. Please let me know in the comments if you have any questions. I'll be more than happy to answer them. Tag me on Instagram with your finished work. I'd love to see it. And it just makes my day seeing that other people have been trying these tutorials. Let me know how I'm doing. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And I will see you guys next time. Thank you so much.